Hey, welcome to SI Now. It's Friday, March 3rd, and I'm Maggie Gray.
And I am Ryan Aselta.
You know, Ryan, diss tracks are all the rage right now because of Nicki Minaj and Remy Ma. Is it true it was your diss track to the USGA that got all those golf rules changed?
No, well, maybe. The USGA listened. They dropped 9 different rules, but maybe unlike Nicki Minaj, they actually listened to the diss track, responded, and we got a result.
The way that you rhyme bunker with sucker was really good. I really like that.
A loose rhyme there, right?
You are talented.
Well, coming up today, Maggie, Red Sox fans are holding their collective breath as David Price gets his elbow examined by, you don't want to hear this name, Dr. James Andrews. Albert Chen's going to join us to talk about the impact Price's injury could have on the Red Sox.
But it is March, so let's start with college hoops. ESPN college basketball announcer Jay Bilas, good enough to join us now. Jay, you know, we know you always have your ear to the streets. If you were going to release a diss track to the NCAA, what are a few of the themes that might get into the first verse?
The themes that might get into the first verse. Well, probably money would be first. The next would be fun, because I think basketball for me has always been the most fun game to play, and it's the most fun to watch. And the last would be unpredictable, that we get to March, and while I do think it's more predictable than some people say, some folks will say, well, anybody can win. I don't think that's true. But we always have some things that happen really early in the tournament that are difficult to forecast, and makes it a heck of a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Jay, let's talk about some of the teams themselves here. Major conference tournaments going to kick off next week, and a few teams are starting to really cement themselves as national title contenders. Jay, we're going to give you a few different teams here. Give us an adjective that best describes each team and their chances in the big dance. And let's start with a team that's been in the news a lot lately because of someone's father. Yeah, Lonzo Ball's dad, LeVar, has had a lot to say. How about UCLA? What adjective would you use to describe the Bruins?
Explosive. UCLA is the best offensive team in the country. They got 6 guys that average in double figures. They shoot 53% from the field as a team. That's the best we've seen from a team since 1992 when Duke did it with Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley, Grant Hill, Thomas Hill, that crew. And they also average close to 22 assists a game, and that's the most by a team, I think, since 1996 when Kentucky did it, Rick Pitino's team that won the national championship. So this team is really, really good offensively, and they've got a great point guard in Lonzo Ball that's kind of Jason Kidd-like in the way he plays.
Yeah, he could set the Pac-12 freshman assist record this weekend. I think he needs 3 more assists. You mentioned Rick Pitino there. How about Louisville? 23-7. They take on Notre Dame Saturday. Coming off a loss, a little bit up and down of late. What adjective would you use to describe Louisville?
Probably defense-oriented. Louisville is outstanding defensively, really good on the glass, especially the offensive glass. They may not be a great offensive team. They can struggle at times to score. They're not consistent on the offensive end. But they're coming on. They've been much better over the last month and have played a lot better. They just got clipped at Wake Forest the other night. But it's a really good basketball team that's got a star in Donovan Mitchell. It just depends on is he going to play well and get help from some of his teammates. They've got to have their top 3 guys, Quentin Snyder, Deng Adel, and Donovan Mitchell. They have to play well in the offensive end for Louisville to win against the best competition.
Jay, I want to ask you about Kansas. If I were going to use an adjective, I'd call them complicated. They're dealing with 2 prominent off-the-court issues. Josh Jackson, charged with misdemeanor property damage. There is this ongoing investigation into an alleged rape that reportedly took place in a dorm where KU basketball players live. Despite all that, the Jayhawks won their 13th consecutive Big 12 title. What adjective would you use to describe them?
Guards. They're guard-oriented. It's a team that has gone small this year, and it plays a more perimeter-oriented style, and that's not always been the case for Bill Self-coached teams. He's always played more inside-out, but he doesn't have quality, as much quality inside as he's had in years past. And they had an injury earlier this year where they lost their starting center, Udoka Azubuike, for the year with a wrist injury. So they're a little bit, and no pun intended, kind of shorthanded inside. But their guards are great. They've got the best backcourt in the country, in my judgment, and Frank Mason III is a Natural Player of the Year candidate, and Devontae Graham, both of whom were expected to be mid-major players out of high school. And so Kansas is really good, and they're capable of the Final Four. They're capable of winning the thing. But their guards are going to do it. If they win it, it's going to be because of their guards.
Well, Jay, we get the grand finale of the regular season this weekend. You're going to be on the call for UNC and Duke Saturday night, 8:15 Eastern, tip on ESPN from Chapel Hill. Now, Duke won the first matchup on February 10th. Tar Heels can wrap up the ACC regular season title with a win. How important is this game as far as setting the tone for both teams heading into next week with the conference tournament and then, of course, the NCAA tournament?
Well, it's important just because of the height of the game. I mean, this game has a lot of verve to it, and everybody remembers it, especially in the ACC area. So a lot of times players are judged by how they perform in that rivalry. It may not be fair, but that's the way it is. It's a bigger game than the other games, and so the players know that. The coaches know it too. They try to keep it normal, but it's really hard to do that. But that being said, once the game's over, it doesn't have any impact at all on how you play the next week. So going into the ACC tournament, the loser of the game can win the whole thing. And Duke's the most talented team in the country. They've got the best personnel. They've had a bunch of injuries, so it's been very difficult on them injury-wise. They're not the only team that's had injuries, but they've had more than their share. And North Carolina is, I think, when they play well, the best team in the country. But they've had some lapses on the road where they were horrible at Georgia Tech, they were horrible at Miami, and they were horrible at Virginia. But those games aside, and they can't have a horrible one in the tournament, obviously, or that ends everything. But when they play well, I don't think there's anybody better.
Yeah, we know that home crowd is going to be behind them. Jay, we started with a question about hip-hop, so let's end there. You are famous for posting Jeezy quotes in the early morning hours. Can you give us a Jeezy line to help us get hyped for the weekend? It's Friday, after all.
Summer's mine, winter too, popping bottles in the club. That's what winners do.
Got to go to work. Jay Bilas putting in work today.
Gotta go to work.
Really appreciate your perspective and have fun on the call UNC Duke this Saturday night.
Well, we will. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jay.
Appreciate it. How about your favorite Jeezy line, Ryan?
I'm going what he had. He started the day really well, Jay. There's two types of people, predators and prey. I'm a predator. I pray 3 times a day. Gotta go to work.
Mine is all he wanted was the fame, make it last forever. You get some ones, I get some ones. We make it rain together. I gotta go.
This is much better than diss tracks.
That was fun. Well, anytime Dr. James Andrews is mentioned in spring training, generally not a good sign. For David Price, he's hoping a second opinion from the doctor brings good news. Price was scratched from his first spring training start because of forearm tightness. Baseball scribe Albert Chen is here with more. Okay, worst case scenario, it's season-ending Tommy John. Best case, he comes back before the season. We're going to find out where he falls soon enough. But how much trouble would the Red Sox be in if they have to miss Price for an extended period of time?
Well, I mean, it's clear this would be a significant blow to them. I mean, as you mentioned, ominous news whenever Dr. James Andrews is mentioned. But the thing is, the Red Sox coming into the season, you look at the broad picture, they won 93 games last year, right? So, and they added Chris Sale. So if worst case scenario happens, David Price out for the season, you're essentially swapping David Price for Chris Sale. I don't think anyone would argue that this is an upgrade. So the Red Sox, they've got a lot of depth in their starting pitching, but they also have a ridiculous offense and a very good bullpen. With or without David Price, they are the AL East favorites.
Kind of interesting. He sounds like he's had this discomfort in years past in spring training, though this sounded a little bit different. There was a little bit of a tweak when he threw a pitch, which I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about this at all, especially at his age, his innings, if he's led the league in innings pitched, pitches thrown the last couple of seasons. So
and
a lot
his
of wear and
velocity
tear.
was down last season. So there were some kind of red flags there.
You mentioned the offense. Without Price, with Price, the Red Sox are really loaded. Let's talk about Mookie Betts. Signed an interesting deal yesterday, the 1-year contract, $950,000, which is the most ever for a non-arbitration eligible player with 2 years of service. $50,000 short of the record, which was Mike Trout for $1 million. So should Betts be viewed in that same category? Is he a Mike Trout level talent?
Oh, no one is a Mike Trout level talent.
But they're
he's
paying
pretty
him that
close.
way, right?
And
Yeah.
Look, he finished second in AL MVP voting last year, and I think he's going to make a legitimate run at Trout this year. I mean, you look at the offensive numbers right there, and they're spectacular, but he also plays great defense. And this goes back to why the Red Sox look. I mean, if they lose David Price, that's a significant blow. But Betts, 24 years old, one of the great talents in baseball. There's no question about it. He's only going to get better. This is why you got to be bullish on the Red Sox. And Betts, you know, look, I mean, this is just baseball where these guys get criminally underpaid early on.
Absolutely.
And Trout was in the exact same position just a few years ago. And, you know, if you're the Red Sox, ideally you would sign him to a long-term contract right now. But, you know, baseball is just not that simple.
Yeah, it's not simple, and he's setting himself up for a big payday. Eventually, we assume it will be with the Red Sox down the road. Now, you mentioned you think that Boston is the prohibitive favorite in the AL East. Who's going to push them the most? Who's going to be playing for second place, in the opinion of Albert Chen?
Yeah, I mean, the AL East traditionally has been regarded as the most competitive division in baseball. I think this is the year where we kind of see some mediocrity. I mean, I think that, like, there are a lot of mid 85 win teams, but to get to the 90-win level, I think it's the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are right there, but I think that because they're an older team, I think the Red Sox are the clear favorites. Now, the question is this still a World Series caliber team? I think they're going to get into the playoffs, but they still, if they lose Price, worst case scenario happens, they still need that elite starter to go with Chris Sale.
What about the Yankees? A team where you saw the emergence of Sanchez last year, but a team that really you still think is in rebuild mode. They get Bird in the lineup, kind of a changing of the times. No more A-Rod, no more Teixeira. What do you think, Albert? Can they put together a competitive team that stays in the race with Boston?
Yeah, I mean, they can stay in the race. And their second half last year with all the young talent that you mentioned was kind of very interesting. But, I mean, you looked at kind of the disparity in talent between the Red Sox and the Yankees. And I think the Red Sox, look, I mean, the starting pitching, which we've talked about, there are still a lot of questions about the health of some of the guys that are slated to be there. So they're one or two injuries away from where I'm saying the Yankees do have a chance. But right now, where we stand on paper, I think Boston is the clear favorite.
Okay, so for Baltimore then, do they still have the hangover from how they lost in the postseason? I mean, can Buck Showalter, great, obviously baseball mind, great motivator, great person to have in the clubhouse, but do you think they're still snake bitten?
You know, if there's any team that can recover because of their manager, it's Baltimore. I mean, I think every year we kind of stand here going up to spring training and into the season, and we're like, yeah, the Orioles, they were really good last year, surprisingly good. But you look at them on paper, they're just not quite there. But we always discount them, and they're always in the mix. And it's because, as you mentioned, Buck Showalter kind of gets them there. And I think that this team still has a lot of firepower in their lineup. And, you know, not great starting pitching. But again, I go back to the fact that Boston is the clear favorite. But if they have one or two more injuries in their starting rotation, they are in trouble. So, you know, it's spring training. It's, you know, always an interesting time. So we'll see what happens.
All right, let's call Zach Britton out of the bullpen and get his thoughts on things.
Oh,
Too soon?
You're going to make the call.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Yeah,
I
too
made the
soon.
call. Albert Chen, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Albert.
that. Fun talking baseball. Earlier this week, Villanova head coach Jay Wright stopped by our studio to talk about his new book. It's called Attitude. We had so many questions for Coach, we had to go rapid fire. Here is our lightning round with the future Hall of Famer. Aside from Rolly Massimino, what current coach have you taken the most from?
Mike Krzyzewski.
Toughest arena to play in?
I still Carrier Dome.
How many cheesesteaks do you eat in a year?
Oh man, uncountable.
More than 20?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
The recruit who got away?
Wayne Ellington, Gerald Henderson on the same high school team at my kids' school. Knew them since they were little kids. That one crushed me.
NCAA rule you wish you could just wave a magic wand, get rid of it.
Unofficial visits. You know, I wish you could just, if a kid wants to visit your school, you could just pay for them to come visit your school.
Bigger star in Philadelphia, Joel Embiid or Carson Wentz?
Oh, great question. Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz.
The Wentz
I
wagon.
had to think about it, but the Wentz wagon and Pennsylvania is big.
Coach Jay Wright, congratulations. The book, Attitude, simple, but it's a great message. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks for doing this.
Well, earlier this week, we were lucky enough to have a living legend stop by the SI Now studios. Sugar Ray Leonard, the man who became the first fighter ever to win world titles in 5 different weight classes, paid us a visit. Now, Maggie not only had a chance to talk boxing with Sugar Ray, but had the unique opportunity to go down memory lane with the Hall of Famer.
Sports Illustrated's had such a long history with you, Sugar Ray. You've been on the cover many times, and just really, I mean, they've chronicled your entire career dating back to the Olympics and all the way through until your retirement. We have a couple photos that we'd like to show you. This is 1980. This is before the rematch with Roberto Duran.
I was in my prime. I was like, I was ready. I was cocky. I was confident. I was in shape. It will be a war, and that's what it was. It was a war.
I interviewed him recently when he was promoting his movie, and I asked him, did you ever say no mas? And he said no to this day. What did you hear that night?
Do we have enough film?
Yeah, we do. The floor is yours.
No, and I love Roberto. And we're friends now after all these years. I used to hate that, yeah. He may not have said that, I don't know, because everything was happening. But when you do this, what does that mean? What does it mean?
It means no more.
No more.
Let's go to another cover. This is 1981. You were the Sportsman of the Year. I
was so happy. I was so, my dad, I took my father and my father-in-law. We came here, and I was so proud. I was so happy that all the hard work did pay off. The Sportsman of the Year award was truly a treasured, one of my main awards that I received.
This was 1987.
Oh, that Hagler. You know, God, that was one of my most cherished moments. And it wasn't the fact that I beat him or didn't beat him, but the fact that I went the distance. I did something that most people, rightfully so, didn't think I was capable of doing because they felt that I was too old. I was 30 years old, and I fought one of the best middleweight champions of all time, Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Will we ever see another era like the one you went through? That golden era, one of the golden eras of boxing. Can we get back there?
I am an optimist by nature, and I believe, and I will say yes, we will.
Soon?
Maybe not soon. Well, Saturday we'll see something, for sure.
Garcia and Thurman and Sugar Ray on the call, which is, you have many reasons to tune in. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Sugar Ray Leonard has not aged a day, by the way. Leonard returns to the broadcast booth this weekend to call the welterweight bout in Brooklyn. It's just one thing to watch this weekend. This is SI Now's Weekend Drive, presented by Toyota. Let's go places. Our first stop takes us to Brooklyn, New York. Welterweights Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia will put their undefeated records on the line in a unification bout. The fight will be on network television, and Thurman hopes this fight will bring casual fans back to the sport of boxing.
The real beauty of boxing is what's happening right now. Keith Thurman versus Danny Swift Garcia Saturday night. And the reason why I say that is because this is being broadcasted on CBS Network. You have 2 undefeated world champions. Both are 28 years old. We are not afraid about that, protecting your O. Of course we want to have our own legacies. Of course we want to make the big money. But we really want to make a big statement and prove that we're in a new generation of fighters.
This will be the 3rd all-time unification bout between unbeaten welterweight champions, the first since Felix Trinidad beat Oscar de la Hoya in 1999. Next, we jet across the Atlantic for the Premier League. Liverpool hosts Arsenal in what could be a high-scoring match. Both teams have combined for 16 goals in their last 3 meetings at Anfield. Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger wants his team to come out strong.
Well, it's always high intensity, very competitive. Anfield is a special place always, you know, where the fans are behind their team. The team plays at a good pace, and for us, after a little break, it's important to switch on quick. We have seen that's not easy. Liverpool has shown that against Leicester. After a break, it's important that you're ready from the start on again. And we lose a little bit the rhythm of a competition, and for us it's vital to start strongly at Liverpool.
With a win on Saturday, Jurgen Klopp can become the first Liverpool manager to get a double over Arsene Wenger since the 99-2000 Premier League season. Lastly, we head west for UFC 209. It's a rematch between Tyron Woodley and Stephen Thompson with the welterweight title on the line. Their last fight was a draw, and Woodley says this time he will end the discussion of who is the better fighter.
Our goal is to show you why should you watch it again. What is Stephen going to do differently? What am I going to do differently? Who made the proper adjustments to go in this time around, make it a clear, concise win, and walk away with the gold?
Woodley Thompson 2 goes down Saturday night at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. And that's what's in store for this weekend. Of course, the Warriors are the gold standard in the NBA, Ryan. But after back-to-back losses for the first time in 146 games, let that sink in.
That is insane.
Some believe that Golden State is starting to finally lose their luster. Ryan, I'm not one of those people.
No?
Yes, they had scored the fewest amount of points all season long in a loss to Chicago. I know that Kevin Durant is out, so there's some concerns about the injury. But I'm not going to get fully bent out of shape by just losing back-to-back games. Listen, they're on a 5-game road trip that takes them to the East Coast and the Midwest. It's March. There's enough time to figure it out, maybe get your mojo back a little bit. The defensive intensity wasn't there for them against the Chicago Bulls, but this is something that's correctable with perhaps a little bit of rest and just a little bit of a retooling. I just think they're exhausted at this point, mentally, physically. The real test for them is going to be towards the end of the month. From March 20th to April 1st, they have Oklahoma City, the Spurs twice, and the Rockets twice. If something is still wrong after that run, then I'm going to start worrying about the Golden State Warriors, not after a couple slip-ups on the East Coast.
So I'm going to disagree with you and agree with you in the same sentence. Okay. How about that? Talk about talent right there. Yeah, here's why. You said they're going to get their mojo back. I think they will. The whole problem here is timing with this Durant injury. So 4 weeks from now, he'll get reevaluated, okay? Say they clear him after 4 weeks. There's only 2 weeks left in the regular season. So that's a big if he gets cleared right away to return to game action, which we don't think is probably going to happen. So they're going to use these 4 weeks, and I do think they'll find their mojo. They'll find how to play without Durant. They'll get back to seeing a little bit of what we saw last year. I mean, Steph Curry's numbers all season have been down in every major statistical category. So he's going to find it. Klay Thompson will step up a little bit in the meantime. But just when they find it, Durant is going to come back. And when teams are starting to really look to peak going into the playoffs, all of a sudden the Warriors are going to have to adjust again to having Durant in their lineup. You don't want to be a team, trying to find which way you're going to play heading into the first, second round of the postseason.
No, I get that, but I think that's a little overblown just because I believe that they already did the heavy lifting, so to speak, of finding their chemistry early on in the season. It did take a while. I think it took about 2 months to really get Durant fully into that lineup. So I think it's going to be easier to adjust again once the playoffs begin. I don't think it just pressed the reset button while all of a sudden it's like they've never played with Kevin Durant a minute of the season. I think they'll understand what it's like to reincorporate him back into the fold. The other thing is, listen, I understand that the Western Conference is going to be very difficult. I understand it is strong top to bottom. But if it's the Warriors playing the Utah Jazz, and no disrespect to them, I think they can win that even without Kevin Durant. I don't think the real tests are going to start for them second round, third round, obviously Western Conference Finals if they make it that far, which I think they will. I think they can win a first-round series without Kevin Durant, so I don't think they'll rush him back. I do believe that getting him back in the lineup is not going to be as difficult as some people believe.
Right. I think they can win a first-round series without Durant, but can they win a series against a San Antonio or a Houston in round 2 just incorporating Durant back into the lineup for the first time?
I don't know.
That's not a team you want to be moving parts around.
I understand that, but if it's the Clippers, then they're going to be fine. It is going to be about the matchups because the Golden State has been so good against LA. There's not going to be a shot. So maybe in that case, if things are fortuitous to line up for the Warriors, maybe they don't need Durant back for two series.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah, it would be nice if they could get him back before the postseason. Have just a week to incorporate him back into the rotation. Yes, I think they're quickly going to pick it up.
Although here's the thing, right? Golden State's mortal. At this point, even though I think their, demise is overblown and that they're going to come back and be in the finals again, I mean, they are a little mortal. Maybe some teams smell a little blood in the water. It's all good for the NBA. Makes things a little more exciting.
I mean, look at the numbers. Talk about mortal. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry last night, 0 for 9 from three-point range in the fourth quarter. They were 17% combined for the game, and Steph was 10 of 27. I mean,
they must have had
those numbers are concerning against the Bulls team. Let's face it.
I know.
They weren't playing the Cavs or the Spurs.
I think they had a deep dish pizza before the game. I'm not sure if I
Chalk
read
it up
that
to dinner,
somewhere.
fine.
I think
All right.
I read it on Twitter. Yeah, that's going to do it, Ryan. Great week. Thank you so much. That's it for us for this Friday edition. We'll be back on Monday, of course, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. It's our new time. We're going to have all the latest sports news for you then. But until we get to Monday, stick with SI.com for all the latest news. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live is our handle. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
James drove his RAV4 hybrid into the frozen wilderness. The scent of his jerky attracted a hungry wolf pack behind him. To survive, he had to remain fearless. He would hunt with them and expand their territory. He'd form a bond with a wolf named Acalia, become den mother, and nurse their young. James left in search of his next adventure.
How far will you take the all-new RAV4 hybrid? Toyota, let's go places.